Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Well, Pitt football was busy. My DMs and my overall mentions between the last 2 weeks between Pitt fans and everything else. What is Pitt doing? What is Pitt doing? Is Pitt going to add anybody? Well, yesterday was your answer. Not a lot, not just did they Pitt own and Pitt add a kicker beforehand and Kendall Stanley, the offensive lineman from Charlotte, but 7 commitments yesterday for the Pitt Panthers. And I'll tell you what, there are some damn good players that I see on this list. Some that could be reaches, guys that need development and could really surprise Pitt. And we'll really go into all of those today, but a masterful day in terms of what Pitt was looking to do, what they still need to do, things they still need to address in the portal. But I think overall, when you look at Pitt's roster, really cutting down on walk-ons. Obviously, the amount of role changes that are happening. We saw numerous amounts of walk-ons hit the portal because of new changes to the NCAA and the future state of college football. Things are changing. But the one thing that is sure changing is the Pitt roster when it comes to adding players through the portal. Heck, Pitt added a number of different All-Americans through the portal today, Power 4 players through the portal. It was really impressive, to say the least, the amount of the guys that they got in here. Some guys that they've missed on for numerous weeks now. Some guys they pushed out. We'll go into all that stuff here tonight. But before we get into it, guys, as you always know, this show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Obviously, you can imagine they're always selling the corporate sponsorship and the deal in here. Obviously, Pitt, Hail to Pitt, Icy Light, the can, very cool design. Very cool stuff. And heck, we may even crack one here on a Sunday night because obviously it's good for me to be back. I was in South Carolina for about a week and a half, visiting my younger brother and visiting family, which was always really cool to go down there and see him. Obviously wanted to jump on a little bit when I was down there, but down there having a good time with family. Sometimes you don't want to interrupt that stuff. And obviously too, away from my career, which is always a good thing. Just taking a break from my career as well. So it was good, but it's good to be back and Pitt is in full swing. And make sure you go over there to Colonial Beer. Obviously, 2 great individuals that I know. Obviously, Brian and Alan. Obviously, 2 incredible people. Pitt season ticket holders, Pitt men. Certainly do a lot of stuff for when it comes to Alliance 412. Obviously, the amount of work they do in the community as well. Whenever you go into Colonial Beer, you guys have seen the pictures I posted online. I will certainly be doing that again this year as they continue to be a sponsor of the show. We'll be doing a lot of stuff. You guys see all the different spaces in there. The difference between beers in terms of your light lagers or heavier lagers. Many different selections when you go into Colonial Beer. They always have great customer service. You'll obviously see Bill or Alan in there. Make sure you say hello. Tell them the Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen sent you. And they'll certainly sit down and have a conversation with you because they're great people. Make sure you go over and see them at Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. The show is also sponsored by Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson, an attorney on your side. With everything going on in the economy as it is today, with certain amounts of debts between individuals and businesses, Brian is sitting down with people on a day in, day out basis to be able to have a conversation with them, free consultations, to be able to find the solutions that you need to be the best, but more importantly, the solutions that you need to get back on track in your life or in terms of your business. He has the answers, and if he doesn't have the answers, he'll put you in the right direction because that's who Brian is. Make sure you give them a call at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Obviously, Brian, I use him personally because, one, he's an incredible individual. Again, another Pitt man, comes from a great family, has a great family. He does a lot of work within the community as well. We're surrounded by good people. Brian is one of those people. I can tell you this, one thing that's great about Brian, too, is that he's not one of those big law firms. One, he cares about you, the individual, and your results. If you want results driven, obviously Brian is your guy. And more importantly, anytime you can help out a Pitt man, but more importantly, get your answers and results where he can help you out, the individual, it's always a good idea to give him a call. If you have a question, you're not sure if it can be answered by him, so give him a call. He'll put you in the right direction. Make sure you get the answers that you need. Again, this is Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson. Call them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Guys, as we get into it, obviously a number of questions will be coming in tonight as we go over all of the players who have committed here this past weekend, 7 commitments again. Obviously, down below, the Super Chat button to get your question to the top of the questions, you can always use the super chat button down below to make a small donation to the program. And always, of course, free, subscribe and like this video. It helps out with the algorithm and helps us continue to grow. And you'll be seeing a lot more interviews coming on board here. They'll be releasing here in the next couple of weeks between commitments, but also 2 new players, transfer portal, and obviously 2 overall college football talk that really benefits the ACC. All right, guys. So first up, before we get into all the comments or anything, obviously I appreciate it. Guys, always in here early. WRW Pitt, smash the like button and subscribe. Anthony, time for talking college transfer to JJ Kitchen tonight. Amen. Let's see here. The Wonder Kid, absolutely excited for tonight's chat. Amen. We got a lot of good stuff here tonight. You think more from Oregon will commit? That visit still has to happen. Obviously, Pitt's in a really good spot right now, but we'll continue to see what that looks like when guys go on other visits before they reach it here. So we'll continue to monitor that on a number of different scales. Mark, interesting watching Vikings Lions and intros to that as Addison saying Pitt, USC, and Brian O'Neill finishes up with strong Pitt. Amen, man. I think Jordan Addison did like Pitt. I think he tried chasing a little bit of a bag, obviously, but didn't get to get that bag. He was offered, promised a lot of things, and a lot of things didn't come to fruition there. As you can imagine, Lincoln Riley and the way he does business is never a good thing. Lincoln Riley, not exactly one of the guys that you look at and say, hey, he's a good guy. He's not. He's really a real shitbag in terms of college football, to say it lightly. Biggest loss in the portal, biggest gain. Speedy Tortoise, great question. We'll be over a lot of that stuff tonight. Again, guys, to see your comment, get to the top, get on the screen when we answer comments. After I go through the monologue here between the 7 commitments this weekend, make sure you can use the super chat button down below and certainly put up your question. So first off, obviously, a number of different commitments here, as you can imagine. But the first one we're going to talk about, I think, is going to be certainly a very good aspect and potentially a very good player. Obviously, as you can imagine, between so many different notes on each one of these players through film study, obviously doing a lot of stuff in terms of their overall background and their history. We'll go over that bunch of that stuff here tonight, too. But first up, Blain Spires, defensive end transfer out of Utah State, 6'4", 230. I think 230 is a little light right now. I think in the Pitt Ironworks, obviously, truly have one of the best when it comes to putting on weight, and guys that really, when they come into the Pitt Ironworks, we truly have some of the best around, to say the least. I can tell you those guys will certainly get these guys into shape. I bet you he'll probably be a 250, 260 by the time the season comes around, by the time he puts more muscle on there. Obviously, we have truly some of the best in the Pitt Ironworks. But first up, obviously, Blain Spires, again, expected to have a big year this previous year. Obviously comes with size and really a guy that can look really good on the outset, can look really good, but more importantly, he's supposed to have a big year. Ended up having an injury at Utah State. He's originally from the Youngstown area, coming back over to the East Coast, was expected to have a big year at Utah State. Did not make it into the season. Obviously, has suffered an injury that sidelined him for the remainder of the year. Towards the end of the year, I think he could potentially get on there, but obviously I think it was good on their end, the school's end, saying that obviously get him healthy, completely healthy, going into this next coming year, or if he hit the transfer portal, he hits the portal, gets a number of Power 4 offers, Group of 5 offers. Luckily, Pitt was able to gain his services. Obviously, one of the biggest things in having a conversation. Love the coaching staff. Tim Dowse did a really good job getting on the phone, closing this guy, and really getting him on board to understand what his potential is here at Pitt. And he really called it a no-brainer, coming home to this point, and really called it a no-brainer. And I think that when you look at a guy like Blain Spires, overall, his stats over the last, 4 years, he's certainly been in college for, almost 5 years. I think 5 years now. This will potentially be his 6th year because of an injury. He's done a good job, obviously. The previous year, before this year, I thought he did a really good job. He was based on a really good opportunity at Utah State. I think him coming back home to Eastern Side, I think he really takes a step up this year. Obviously, it comes down to development. He loved Tim Dowse. He loved the coaching staff. Really looked at a guy like Pat Narduzzi, easy to talk to. Loved his progression in terms of being able to develop defensive linemen. And just really saw this as a really good opportunity. I believe Blain Spires could have a really good year at Pitt, depending upon the development of what he goes through and how well he understands the defense. I think he's got a real good opportunity to be successful when it comes to Pitt. Number 2, Keith Govia. offensive lineman out of Richmond, 6'4", 310 pounds. We beat out Virginia Tech for this guy here. Played multiple positions in the offensive line. I think he's really a dual threat when it comes to moving him inside or outside. Never played the center position, played both guard positions, played the tackle position. But in the last 24 starts and really the last 3 years, he's had 24 starts, and the majority of them coming at the guard position. So he had him at the guard position the last 3 years at 24 starts at guard. Obviously, from talking to teammates, coaches, those guys have said he's one of the toughest people you'll see. They think when it comes to Pitt football, they thought he looked really good in terms of being able to play at the power forward level. I think if he would have stayed in the portal a little bit longer, I think he would have had 5 or 6 different offers he was starting to pick up. I thought Pitt did a good job here being able to close on Keith. Keith, again, if you remember seeing, I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, obviously his picture and whatnot. I mean, the guy's built like a brick shithouse, man. I mean, the guy's built, certainly does a really good job of being physical in the offensive line. Again, teammates and coaches have said the guy is physically tough, is just a football junkie. I think in terms of whenever you go to get a guy from the group of 5 or anybody you bring in from the outside of the program, when it comes to the transfer portal, you want a guy who's really a football junkie and a guy who really wants to go to that next level. And I think that's why he's making this jump. And he certainly did a good job the last 3 years. Obviously, Richmond was a little, obviously upset to lose him because he was a good player. And I think he's ready to really take his level to that next level, going to the Power 4. Obviously, Coach Jeremy Darveau, is going to need to continue to develop Keith, get him up to speed and what Pitt does in their offense, how well he develops in the offense, how well he develops in the line, getting to be able to really develop at the Power 4 level will really dictate how he does this coming year, but he certainly has all the potential. And I think when you go down into the number of these guys that we're going to talk about tonight, they have the potential. But it comes to this point in terms of when you look at the transfer portal, it all comes down to how the player is developed, which Pitt has done a good job over the years, has done a really good job, but how they go to develop and then how it translates to the games. Obviously, we saw a number of different guys from the previous year. Obviously, Eli Holstein being one, CJ Lee, Raphael Poppy Williams, guys they hit on in the portal, did a really good job developing. Besides those 2 or 3 last games of the year, did a really good job overall. I think when you look at this from an outside perspective, I think Keith can really be a damn good offensive lineman. I think he can be a really good addition to this Pitt team, and watching his potential is certainly there. But obviously, too, it's up to Coach Darveau to really just finish off those finishing touches and see how he competes when it comes in the spring and in the fall. And again, I love these guys coming in for the spring. They'll be enrolled. They'll be here in the spring, learning the offense in the spring, summer, because summer now you have OTAs. You get that time in there. You get that time in there, and obviously, too, you get fall camp as well. I think those are massive in terms of being able to develop these guys from top to bottom. Next up, Jaden Bonso, safety transfer out of Ohio State, 6'2", 210 pounds. Obviously here, he's from St. Peter's Prep High School, obviously New Jersey. Guys, tough as nails. It's obviously, too, that's a really good high school. Plenty of different guys that come out of that high school. A lot of guys that were one Power 4 guys, but also 2 NFL guys. So I'm good with one. That's another good highlight to see him come out of the woodshed, basically, where he goes to Ohio State, has 3 years of eligibility remaining. Really just lost himself on the depth chart, obviously, with Ohio State. I mean, you look at the roster from top to bottom. He's a guy from anybody that I talk to that is, one, really physical. They think he can play safety, obviously, like what he was at Ohio State. But obviously in Pitt's scheme, he could potentially be the star position because he's a physical hitter. A tremendous speed from the back end. Obviously, I think he does a great job. I think if he played safety, obviously, he'll be a strong safety, a lot like a Donovan McMillan, what he was able to turn into. So I think there's a lot of potential there. Obviously, we fought off a number of different Power 4 teams to get the services of Jaden. I think he's got the potential to be really, really good. Obviously, was in the back end like that with Corey Sanders. Corey Sanders has done a tremendous job. A guy like Donovan McMillan, who came in, from Florida, being able to develop him. Obviously, you saw DeMar Hamlin get developed. I mean, numerous guys in the back end who have done a really good job of being, in Pitt's system, but more importantly, getting developed and then going on to the National Football League. That certainly does help. It certainly presents opportunities, and he saw that. That was one of the things that he really talked about from top to bottom, looking at this guy and saying, hey, he could be a real potential guy. And if you look at overall, Jaden, when he was coming out of high school, had over 36 offers. I mean, Power 4 galore. Ends up going to Ohio State. Ohio State's doing a lot of work in the transfer portal as well. They've added a number of different guys, and I think that Pitt really did a good job of selling this and saying, hey, you're not going to have to sit behind anybody else. You have a real good opportunity to jump on the field immediately and be an impact player. I think that certainly grabbed his attention to say the least, and really got him on board to really start taking a look at Pitt. And when he got on campus, he loved it here. And obviously, too, Corey Sanders and Archie Collins, both those guys did a tremendous job closing this deal. And me personally, he's got the talent, man. I think all he had to do is just put him on the field. Put him on the field, man. Didn't want to sit behind any more guys at Ohio State. Figures he can come here and compete for a job. I wouldn't be shocked if you start to see him potentially even start on day one when it comes to this 2025 season. Next up, a very intriguing prospect, another young guy, Andy Jean, wide receiver transfer out of Florida, 6'1", 6'2", depending upon who you talk to, 185 pounds. I think he'll maybe add on 5 to 10 more pounds here when it comes to the Pitt Ironworks, obviously. Coach Stacchiotti, again, all those guys do a tremendous job over there at the Pitt Ironworks. I personally don't think they get enough credit, to be quite frank with you. And they'll really be developed here. They'll add more muscle, obviously coming up here, another year in a Power 4 program. Obviously, Andy Jean has 3 years of eligibility and had offers from Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, LSU, Miami, Michigan, Penn State, Texas A&M, and others. This is a guy that had every option. Could have gone anywhere, I think. But again, this is another team that you look at that bringing in potentially a new offensive scheme when it comes to Florida. He's ready to get on the field immediately. Obviously, he presents that opportunity. Cade Bell and J.J. Laster did a really good job of being able to sell this to Andy Jean. Again, his services were very much required. Obviously, we fought off Louisville, a number of different teams. Louisville was making a very strong push towards the end. Their fans and their coaches were extremely upset that he committed here and not to them. But obviously, too, I think the biggest thing that Andy looked at is the quarterback situation with Eli Holstein. I think it's a really big thing. Obviously, too, when you have your wide receiver in place and a guy that's as talented as Andy, he's been 2 years in at a Power 4 program like Florida. Obviously, he's got enough experience at the Power 4 level now coming over to the ACC and Pitt. I think he can start to take that next step to where, hey, he gets on the football field with a guy like Deuce Spann. Deuce Spann was supposed to be a starter this year at Florida State. He transfers into Pitt. Those two guys at the top, obviously, still wide receiver number 1, in my opinion, is Kenny Johnson. So you'll have those 3 guys plus Raphael Poppy Williams, 4, and CJ Lee, 5. And obviously, too, a number of different young guys that are coming in. But also, too, you still got Zion Fowler-L still back there. So that wide receiver room continues to look very, very aggressive, but more importantly, extremely fast. Both of these, and we'll talk about all the wide receivers here. The wide receivers in this group, man, it's about speed. They went out and got a guy like Andy Jean, who's really 6'1", 6'2", more of a guy with size. Fits really the mold of Kenny Johnson. I think Andy Jean's a little bit faster. But Kenny Johnson is a guy who's still fast, but obviously, too, does a tremendous job in his route running and does a really damn good job. So, I mean, overall, you look at these, the 2 additions at the wide receiver position so far in the portal, Pitt's really done a good job of attacking their needs. 6'1", 6'2" for both of these guys. And they added more size. They got a little bit of combination between guys that are bigger and the guys that are a little bit smaller. So you really have a good combination in that wide receiver room. Andy Jean's got a guy. He's a type of guy that has a speed, which you can't teach. The speed that you need to get vertical down the football field to really create that separation and really create that opportunity to score more touchdowns and be more aggressive on certain portions of the football field, whether it's on the outside or using the middle of the football field. He's a guy that can really create a deep threat and really push off that front seven, between the 4 D linemen and the 3 linebackers, really pushing those guys back and not allowing more than 7 in the box. Where some teams at some portions of this year, when we were running the ball with Desmond Reed, they really had sometimes 7, 8, potentially 9 guys in there when they knew we were going to run the football. So Andy Jean, I think, is going to be a good addition to this team. Again, potential. I expect J.J. Laster to develop him and make him really into the wide receiver that we need, which is a guy who becomes a vertical threat down the football field. I know the comments are coming in, guys. Obviously, again, super chat buttons down below. Obviously, I'll get to all the questions here when we get through all of these guys here. So where there's questions, we can go through all of them. But we're almost there. We're going through a number of this stuff. I know it's taking a little bit longer, but had a lot of information on these guys. So we're going through them. Another position of need, defensive end. Joey Zelinsky, defensive end, Eastern Michigan, 6'4", 250 pounds. His story is quite interesting. This is a guy that really was he comes from Gavin Bartholomew's high school here in Pennsylvania. Went a number of different routes. Obviously, was kicked off a team at one point. Went a junior college route. Really almost begged Eastern Michigan to give him an opportunity to come on as a walk-on, earn a scholarship. He earns a scholarship because he worked his tail off, matured. This is a guy where, let me see here. He's got, I believe he has 1 year of eligibility left, potentially 2. One from anybody you talk to, between coaches and teammates, they love this kid. They love this kid. Talked about how his maturity has gone through the roof, but more importantly, a leader and just physically tough, a guy who's physical. I thought he did a really good job through a number of his years, really, especially to this last year. Between the last 2 seasons, he's had 67 tackles, 11 and a half tackles for loss, and 3.5 tackles, 3.5 sacks the last 2 seasons. I think he's done a good job. He continues to develop. I think Tim Dowse can try to take him to that next level. Tim Dowse is well respected around the coaching circles. Obviously, Sam Houston State obviously loved him. I think he came in second or third in their head coaching vacancy this previous year. I think Joey Zelinsky's got a really good ceiling. I think he's got a high ceiling. I think development's going to be the important part of this. He's going to have a guy, again, a lot of opportunity to get playing time at the defensive end position. Same thing with Blain Spires. These are 2 guys that I think certainly have the potential. Now it's about developing that potential and making them reach it, especially here in this last year. The one thing that's really good about both those defensive ends is they're willing to work their asses off. I think any of the stops that you talked about, obviously with Joey, from where he started to where he's going, the kid has matured so much to where the work ethic is there. When your previous coaches, and your previous teammates talk nothing but great things about you, I think that says a lot about Joey and how much he's matured and really what he can do at the Power 4 level when it comes to Pitt. And obviously Pitt's job in terms of developing defensive linemen across the board. I think he saw that opportunity, the opportunity to play. It really fits the mold of what Pitt really wants to do. And I think that the overall, the recognition that he can get here, obviously wanting to go to the next level, the NFL, this is a great opportunity to do it, and it makes too much sense. And he really called this coming home. Obviously, his PA roots, living here in PA, growing up in PA, going to high school here. This is a big opportunity to come back, and I think he doesn't take this job lightly. And as he said to a number of different people on the outside, but also to my conversations, he's going to work. And it doesn't matter who's in front of him or who's behind him or who's beside him. He's going to work his ass off to make sure he becomes a productive player here at Pitt. And those are some of the things I love to hear. You want to see that competition at every single position across the board. When you look at college football, the best teams have competition, not just from the starters, but from the second and third string down. You want competition, you want depth. And I think Joey Zelinsky does a good job of addressing those needs and where we need to go. Down to our final 2 players, Rwn Murray, a hometown hero out of the City League, cornerback out of Cal, PA, a D2 All-American. Certainly has great size for the cornerback position, 6'2", 190 pounds. Talk about a guy who's really got a lot of speed. This guy, even for a 6'2" guy, a lot of speed, very physical at the point of attack. I think he fits Pitt's defense of what they run in terms of quarters defense, being able to play press. I think he's done a good job, and I think he could be a really big-time asset. Obviously, an All-American at the D2 level. Obviously, you don't want to fill your roster. Honestly, again, a guy has major potential here. We'll see if that goes on to the next level here. From looking at the tape, anybody I've talked to, especially to his previous coaches, those guys say he's ready for the Power 4 level, that this guy should have been there at that point. He's extremely tough. Obviously, when you come from Pittsburgh in the City League, tough kid, really talented. Overall, very aggressive, which is a really good thing at the cornerback position. When you play a corner for Pitt and you're on an island, you better be tough, you better be fast, and you better know how to cover, man, because it's not easy. It's some of the toughest shit you can do when it comes to Pitt's defense. And I can tell you this right now, man, I think that overall you never want to fully go with your roster of like D2 guys or anything like that. But when you have an All-American, that's an exception. When you're an All-American at that level, you start to have that conversation. Previously, obviously, the kid from Lawrence Farr, Lawrence Harr, who was a D2 All-American offensive lineman out of Ferris State. He ended up committing to Michigan today. When you get an All-American, that means they're damn good, and they're voted by their peers and obviously too in the media and the press. Those guys are good, and they deserve an opportunity to play at this level. But more importantly, this is like coming home for him. I think he could potentially have a big year, obviously with Ryland Gandy moving out, but obviously you still have Rashad Battle, who's coming back next year. Taman Lynham, he's coming back next year. Shadarian Harrison, continue to ready to hear that name. That guy's going to play a lot this year. I think he's going to be extremely special at the cornerback position. And there's some other guys that are back there as well in terms of guys that are younger, but you're adding really good two good portions here in terms of the portal so far. We'll talk about the second one coming up, but 2 more additions. So really you're going to have 5 cornerbacks for 3 positions. I think overall you got to be pretty happy about that, and especially too that the top 3 guys being in really multiple years in this system, which will be a really good thing for Pitt. But Rwn Murray, again, a hometown hero out of the City League. I think he can do a really good job here. Depends on what Archie Collins and what Corey Sanders can do. In my opinion, I'm not doubting Archie Collins, and I'm not doubting Corey Sanders. I mean, those two guys, their resumes across the board, whether, you look at the cornerback position, Jason Pinnock, Dane Jackson, I mean, Jordan Whitehead between the safety position, the corner position. I mean, you can go down the list on and on and on and on and on. So those guys have done a good job. DeMar Hamlin, all those guys back there. It's second to none. Those guys develop NFL talent. They're in the NFL for a reason. These are just another more of those guys that are going to go to the National Football League. And I think that Rwn Murray's coming to a place where he can get really developed here. Again, it comes down to development because some of these guys, they've done a really good job at their other places. But when you take a step up like this, especially too from D2, I think it's really good this spring. He'll have all that chance to practice, the OTAs in the summer and then the fall. I think it'll be really good for him to get adjusted to the speed of the Power 4 level, which is a lot different than D2. But at the same time, though, when you're an All-American, I don't mind giving you a shot, especially too when you're 6'2", 190 pounds. And here in the Ironworks, obviously the Pitt Ironworks, Coach Stacchiotti, he'll do a good job. He'll probably be up closer to 200 pounds before the season begins. Lastly, Kavir Baines, cornerback, transfer out of UC Davis, 5'10", 180 pounds. Guy is 5'10". We've seen a couple of those guys come through here. Obviously, UC Davis, he did a really good job there for a guy that's 5'10", a lot like a Marquez Williams. Marquez Williams is a little bit shorter, 5'8", 5'9", but physical play. One thing I love about him when you watch his tape, physical. Anybody talk about him? Physical. And I think that's a lot of what you talk about when Pitt looks for transfers. The physicality aspect, they like to get coached hard, but they also have speed. When you're playing on an island in this Pat Narduzzi defense, you got to be physical, you got to have speed, and you can't bitch and complain about anything. You got to earn what you have on the field. It's that simple. Let me see my notes here on him real quick to make sure I added anything else. Oh, yeah. Also, too, out of UC Davis, cornerback, 5'10", 180 pounds, had offers from WVU, UNLV, Memphis, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and others. So one thing that's really good is Pitt continues to really beat out a number of Power 5 programs. You're looking at all these programs across the board that we're looking to add these players. Kavir Baines is another one. You add these two in there along with the three that are there, obviously at the facility, along with obviously two of the young cornerbacks. You got to like what you see so far. You got at least 5 cornerbacks, potentially 6 if you count the young guys. I really do believe that the cornerback room, they're probably done adding at the corner room. Potentially, maybe they add at this point a quarterback if it makes sense, a backup quarterback, a guy that can come in and compete behind Eli Holstein. Obviously, Julian Duggar, in my opinion, has earned the starting right in the backup quarterback position. I think that the game against Toledo, with a number of starters out, a guy that was really aggressive, I would be fine with him at the quarterback position, being the backup. Obviously, a guy can be a dual threat in the RPO game. I think that fits Cade Bell's offense and system really well, a lot like Eli Holstein. So, again, I'm good with that too. But overall, they've added 2 wide receivers. They might potentially be done with the wide receiver position, maybe one more guy at the offensive line position. Talking to people around in numerous circles, but obviously too with Lawrence. Pitt canceled Lawrence Haar's visit here, which I was a little surprised about. I personally don't agree with it. The only way I agree with it is that they have other people that are higher up on the food chain in terms of being able to recruit offensive linemen. Pitt has recruited 2 offensive linemen in the portal. Preferably, I want at least 1 to 2 more. If you bring in 3 to 4 guys, let's say even just, let's say 3 guys, you get those 3 portal entries. Then you have also, Ryan Baer 4, Jackson Brown 5, Isaiah Montgomery 6, BJ Williams 7, Lyndon Cooper 8, and then obviously too you would have Caleb Holmes at 9. You want to have in that range of 8 to 10 offensive linemen you can rotate in to have depth. I think that a guy like Jackson Brown and Isaiah Montgomery continue to get better as they continue to play. I told people numerous times that those are guys that were young, man. They're redshirt freshmen. They're going into the redshirt sophomore year, and they're really their first action last year. I think overall, when you look at them, they continually get better. I think that comes down to coaching. That has a lot to do with Jeremy Darveau. I think he's got to be a lot better in terms of being able to develop these guys at a number of levels. I think Ryan Baer has not even reached anywhere close to his potential. I want to see more development out of him in terms of coaching staff and pushing him and really getting him to reach his levels of where he can be, because I think he's an NFL offensive lineman all day. Any of the scouts I talked to, he just looks like an NFL offensive lineman. And the good thing about Ryan Baer, he can play outside or inside, the tackle position or the guard position. Caleb Holmes is the guy to watch out for this year. Obviously, the former 4-star offensive lineman. He's still there. I think he's a guy to watch out for as well. But overall, that's what we have. So, guys, that's what here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, seven transfers from this past week. Obviously, a great number of guys they've brought in here so far. Looking at some of the comments here, obviously, guys, I know there's a lot of comments. Again, if you have not done so, super chat button down below. If you really want your question to pop up, it'll pop up on my screen. It'll highlight, so I'll be able to see it. But go through some of it here. Let's see here. Derek, my man, we still need 2 or 3 more O linemen and a couple more D linemen. I agree. I think from what my understanding is, they're not done. They're not done adding defensive linemen. When it comes to D line, when I say that, it's defensive ends. At the defensive tackle position, they're good. I mean, they have at least 5, 6 guys that can rotate in the defensive tackle position. I really don't expect anybody else to get there. I don't think it's a need for Pitt. The defensive end position, I still think it is. I think you have these 2 guys, obviously. When you look at the 2 additions here, Blain Spires and obviously Joey Zelinsky, those are 2 guys right there. And then you still have, obviously, Jimmy Scott, who's a returning starter next year. I think that Jimmy Scott obviously will be a starter going into next year, obviously. But those are 3 guys right there. Nate Temple's returning, so he'll be your 4th guy right there. And obviously, too, you got some young guys in there, Zachary Crothers, Ty Uhas, another guy, and Maverick Rossio. So, I mean, you got about 5, 6, 7 guys in there. And depending upon how Pitt feels, it comes down to the coaching staff and what they feel like. Are these guys developing to get on the football field? Do they think that they're ready to start to play? Me personally, I would want at least 1 more defensive end. Just because me personally, I would like to have at least 5. You get 3 defensive ends through the portal. You got Jimmy Scott and you have Nate Temple there. That's 5 guys right there. Then your young guys right there, you can rotate in there. But also, too, I got to double check the numbers where Pitt's going in terms of scholarships. I know they raised it to 100 scholarships. I don't think Pitt will go to 100 unless they have to, unless they feel like there's a number of guys out there that can really play throughout the year. So we'll double check that. I got to double check the rosters, obviously. But I think Pitt's done a really good job at this point. But me personally, offensive linemen, I would add at least 2 more offensive linemen to get you to 4, 1 to 2 more defensive ends, and potentially maybe a bigger back if it's out there. If there's a bigger running back out there, because obviously, too, I try to tell people this as well. If you're a running back transfer, and people ask this stuff all the time, you can pay whatever you want to a running back. That's great. When you have a guy like Desmond Reed, who's your number 1 starter, obviously. Okay, you still have Derek Davis there as well. Derek Davis was really starting to turn it on before he got injured. That's another guy to watch out for. But I think overall, when you're trying to sell to a running back, hey, come here and play for us. But also, too, he gets on campus and sees, hey, Desmond Reed, an All-American running back, is playing at Pitt right now. It gets a little bit harder to sell that. It gets a little bit harder because, one, those guys in the transfer portal are going somewhere where there's a legitimate shot for real playing time. When you got a guy like Desmond Reed and Jules Goff, I thought Jules Goff did a tremendous job in the last couple of games and in the bowl game. You saw the speed from top to bottom of what that looks like. I think overall, the running back room from what I've seen, potentially, I think it's as good as it's good as what it is. Because obviously with Derek Davis Jr. coming back, that's gonna be your top 3 guys: Desmond Reed, Jules Goff, and Derek Davis. Obviously, all those 3 guys, Jules Goff and Derek Davis, really fighting it out for that running back too. But it's hard to sell to a running back saying, hey, you want more playing time here, but we have an All-American starting the football game. Because guess what? Everyone and their mother knows Desmond Reed is going to be the starter. So it's hard to sell that to an incoming recruit. So as you can imagine. So if the player's not good enough, Pitt's not going to take him. Pitt's not just going to take a kid they think is not going to be able to perform here just to put a body there. It just does not. This is not how it works. Obviously, too, Desmond Reed and Jules Goff being smaller guys, it's going to be really important for a guy like Derek Davis to get healthy and stay healthy, because I think he can get a lot of carries. I think we need at least 2 to 3 guys in this offense who can really run the football, and you really want a bigger back. We saw that with a number of graduating guys. C.J. Donaldson leaves West Virginia and then goes to Ohio State. They were pretty pumped up about that, to get a bigger back to really rotate in with that rotation there with 2 or 3 guys. So, I mean, you really want that bigger back in there, at least 1. And they certainly have Derek Davis, who's a bigger back. I mean, he's 6'1", 6'2". Dude's a big back. He can certainly play. So, let me see here. Steven, what are your thoughts on the playoffs? Do you think Penn State blows out Notre Dame? SEC overrated, ACC bowl season really bad. Yeah, a number of that different stuff, man. Besides the playoff, I really don't look at the bowl records anymore because you have each and every one of these teams having guys that are out. I mean, hell, Pitt was down to their fourth and fifth string quarterback. Numerous guys out through injury from this past year that were out all year. A number of different guys that were out. Obviously, Pitt's wide receiver one was out, prepping for the NFL draft. And across the board, same thing with Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech ended up losing their bowl game. I saw. I don't look at the bowl records. I really don't. The playoff is the only thing that matters because really all their starters are there. That's really the only thing that matters to me. These other bowl records, what does it matter? I mean, we can say that, we look at the Big 12 or any of the other conferences beating these other conferences, but the regular season matters. Pitt dominated the Big 12 in the regular season. The Mountain West dominated the Big 12 in the regular season. The Big 10 for the majority of the year was really a two-man race, 2-3-man race between Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. And Penn State gets into the Big 10 championship game by backing in. Ohio State lost to a 7-5 Michigan team. Personally, me, do I think that the SEC is overrated? I don't think it's overrated. I just think it's over talked about. Michigan was missing starters. Alabama was missing starters, but Alabama had more of their starters there. I think it's an indictment on Alabama, just getting absolutely pushed around by Michigan. Shout out to them. But obviously, too, I think there's a lot of conversation that, I think that there's a good couple teams in there. Obviously, the SEC, when you look at teams like Georgia, I think most years are really, really good. Obviously, I still think they're a good football team. But when you look across the SEC, the transfer portal and NIL has dispersed all that talent that they had for 2 or 3 years, where they had depth for like the second stringers, third stringers, and fourth stringers. That's not there. Alabama has been purged. Alabama has been purged in the transfer portal. I mean, they've been absolutely rocked. I mean, they've lost over 25, 30 guys to the portal. I mean, that's just unreal. That's a lot of turnover on one's roster. Nick Saban now being gone, I think that Alabama's taken that step down a little bit. And you saw, I had a video out. If you guys haven't looked online yet, but obviously if you go on my channel, I have a video out, a recorded video, talking about, is Kirk Herbstreit, Paul Feinbaum, like ESPN ruining sports. And I said, yeah, because there's a lot of bullshit narratives. They talked about SMU getting blown out. Obviously, if Kevin Jennings plays an average game, I mean, the amount of opportunities they had to score in that football game to, one, keep it close or have a lead was incredible. I think Boise State kept it a lot closer than what people thought. They're just not built. I mean, they're a group of 5 school. I mean, that's great. They played a close game against Oregon early on in the year. But we found out, Oregon got their shit pushed in. Obviously the bye weeks were not friendly to those teams that had byes. But to your last question, I think, obviously with the SEC, I think it needs to be toned down a little bit. And then my stance has always been, since NIL started, there's a lot of parity across college football. For decades, I think the SEC was number one. It was really not even talked about enough. I mean, what they have 15 of the last 17, was it 15? No, 15 of the last 18 national titles, I think it is. Or is it 15 of 19? Because, yeah, Clemson won it twice. FSU won one. So, yeah, the ACC had 3. And then, obviously, I think, Ohio State and Michigan had 1 apiece as well. So, besides that, when it comes to a blowout, I think as we get closer, I want to see if Abdul Carter's healthy for Penn State. If he's out, I don't see Penn State winning that game. The one thing about Penn State, I think SMU's defense was really physical, and it's what kept the game close for 2 quarters. But this is going to be the best football team that Penn State's faced. This is not Boise. These are guys that are playing at the highest level of their game. Notre Dame has gone through 2 games now where they've been the most physical, beating Indiana, who was an 11-win football team, beating Georgia, who's always a physical football team, no matter who they have on there. I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's going to be, in that range of a 7, and in that range of a 3 to 7 point game, maybe from 7 to 10 points. And as it stands right now, Abdul Carter did not practice today. That game's coming up real fast. Right now, I have Notre Dame winning that football game. I think Notre Dame's offense It's been playing at a higher level because they faced better competition, but also, too, Notre Dame's defense is playing lights out. And if I had to bring on the coaching, look at the coaching between Marcus Freeman and James Franklin. Marcus Freeman is a much better football coach than James Franklin. I think James Franklin's got a lot of work to do. He has to stop making stupid decisions, because if he makes some of those dumb decisions, like for instance SMU, where Kevin Jennings just couldn't complete a pass in this game, just for whatever reason, I think the cold really affected him. But if James Franklin goes for it on his own 25 and doesn't get it, I got news for you. Notre Dame's going to score a touchdown. I got news for you. This is going to be a really good test. Now, if Penn State wins this game, then I think that, hey, James Franklin's on the verge of having a special season where he's in the national title game. But if he loses this game, it just goes back into the realm of, James Franklin just can't, he just can't win the big games. He just can't do it. So he's got a lot on his plate. And certainly Notre Dame has a lot on their plate. Marcus Freeman is a really big opportunity for him, but he's got to prove himself. But these past couple games, man, he has done a flawless job in time management and clock management of the game, but more importantly, overall decisions of when to risk it and when not to. I mean, this guy, he's a damn good football coach, man. I think Notre Dame finally has their guy, and I think he's the guy that stays there for 15, 20 years. And I expect, Notre Dame in the next 5 years to win at least one title, and that potentially could be this year. Let's see here. Derek, Poppy Williams can't catch a cold stone, cold hands. He was good early on in the season. I'd say the first half of the season he was really good. Then you had a lot of his quarterback changes, and then obviously Virginia played bad in that game, had numerous drops in that game. I think if he corrects that, he'll be good again, because early on in the season, the guy caught everything. But, he got brought back to earth a little bit. He's got to continue to work, and I think he can be a lot better. But we need to see a lot more improvement out of him, and I know J.J. Laster will be in his ass a lot this year. Obviously, guys, if you have not done so, any word on Kenny Johnson? I mean, right now, from everything I've been told, he's coming back. That's what I was told. And again, not everybody, in my opinion, not everybody wants to do a return. Like, for instance, not everybody on Pitt's roster said, I'm coming back. Some of these guys don't want it. And Kenny Johnson's not exactly a flashy guy. I mean, he's a guy that actually just likes to works from behind the scenes. Not exactly, a lot like Konate Mumfield, a lot like him. You didn't see him say he was coming back next year. It's just some guys are like that. And I think that some people are like, well, we didn't see that they're coming back yet. Well, some guys just don't want to do that. But from everything I've been told, he's coming back. Again, there's still a spring portal. If you're not in the portal by now, you can't get in there. There's one more portal opening. Got to hold on to your guys, man. That's how it is. Me personally, I've been an advocate, and I've said it before. There should be one portal season, and it's after spring ball. You should be, because obviously college football is still going on right now. I don't like how the portal's open with the playoff and all this shit going on. I think at the end of the year, even potentially during the spring, you have some, you have an opening, whether it's in the middle of spring or towards the end of spring, and then maybe the portal's open for like 2 weeks, like in free agency, or 3 weeks, and then that's it. That's when the portal should be opened up. And people are going to say, well, you can't get guys in here for spring ball. Well, you still have OTAs in the summer. You're still learning the playbook. You're still running practices. Players are running practice during the spring, during the summer, and then you have all the fall. I mean, that's kind of what it has to come down to, because obviously the academic calendar comes into play too. But I think the portal being opened up right now during the season is just bullshit. I personally don't like it. I think that it needs to be adjusted. And me personally too, if you take out, let's say, maybe take out some days of like the early spring camps, move the season back into like the middle of August, get this stuff done, roughly right before the end of December, and then open the portal. I'm good with that too. You have 2 weeks after this. You have 2 weeks after the spring semester starts to jump on board and get on the roster. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I look at it. But I think the portal should only be open once. I mean, the portal opening twice is just ridiculous. I mean, it's opened up in December right now. Me personally, that's when it should be open. If that's when you want to have it opened up, and then maybe the teams that are in the playoffs, Maybe they get a week where after those guys are done playing, they can throw their name in the portal. But right now, in my opinion, that's just my opinion when it comes to that's just my opinion when it comes down to different guys that are in the portal or how many times the portal should be open. Let's see here. On X, obviously, I see all the we have over 631 people in here between X and Twitter. If you're over on X, I'm sorry, X and YouTube. If you're over on X, head over to YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe. Obviously, you want to see your comment pop up on the screen for me to see. Obviously, a super chat donation down below. Just make a super chat down below. Make a small donation to the podcast, and it highlights up, and I'll be able to see it. Are there any other names Pitt is targeting in the portal? I mean, they're targeting still plenty of other names. I mean, we still have, for instance, here, from my understanding, because I checked here. One guy that I know is still visiting, C.J. James, offensive lineman out of UTSA. He's visiting on the 9th. So that would be 6, 7, 8, 9. So that'll be on this coming Thursday. He'll be on campus for this Thursday. Obviously, I think that'd be a really good addition there. There'll be a third offensive lineman. He's been a starter for 4 straight years. He's got 1 year remaining in eligibility. I think he'd be a good addition overall. He's on campus. I know they're still looking at defensive ends. Obviously, when it comes to defensive ends, Moore from Oregon, he's supposed to still visit. I believe that's coming up this week. He's still on the board. If we can get him, that'd be huge. I think he's a tremendous athlete. I think he's an incredible player. I think he can be a really good aspect and a really good benefit to the program overall. And he's just a really good player. He's got plenty of different offers out of high school. He's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. I think he's actually a day one starter. I think it'd probably be Jimmy Scott and him across from each other. And then behind those two, you'd have Blain Spires. And then you'd have, why am I drawing a blank on his name already? Then you'd have Joey Zelinsky. Those 4 guys, Nate Temple there. Obviously, he's played enough. He'll be there 5. Maverick Gracio, he'd be 6. I mean, you're really starting to build on depth from there. JJ, would you consider creating a Discord channel? I'm going to be honest with you. I've heard about Discord. I don't really know what it is. I'm going to be really honest with you. Between my career, this, plus private ventures that I have in my personal life, other business ventures that I have, private capital, I'm involved with other businesses, not just in my career, but that I have career, a lot of private ventures that I have and equity in other businesses as well. I'm so busy. It would be extremely tough. Heck, doing this is extremely tough to say the least. I just do this because, one, I love to talk college athletics. I love to talk college sports. I can tell you guys this. I have been approached by other universities in the Group of 5 and the Power 4 about joining college athletics. There's some things I'm still working on. If that move was to happen, I told them what my demands would be to do that. There have been schools that have reached out to me about NIL stuff, joining NIL collectives, but also joining athletic departments for football strictly, for business development, things of that nature. There's just a lot of stuff going on, but I mean, I love to do this. I love talking college sports. I love talking college football, and obviously too, I love Pitt. Obviously, with Pitt being our school, I love talking about Pitt. I love being able to just diagnose players that get in the portal, recruiting classes, things of that nature. That's kind of the stuff I love to do, Anthony. And I think on a broad scale, in a perfect world, if this grew big enough, maybe I'd run my own show to where we did just a constant theme every single day, but that would take time as well. There's a lot of possibility. And I appreciate Anthony, but I'll have to look up more about Discord and seeing what that looks like and what that entails. Cause I've seen it all over, Twitter and stuff like that, but I just don't know enough about it, but I appreciate the comment there. It's actually a very good idea overall. Biggest portal loss and gain so far. Obviously, more of Oregon would change that, but as of now, even right now, man, I think that potentially the kid from Oregon Moore would be a good addition. When I have him as number 1, I have him towards the top. I don't know about number 1 yet. I think the biggest portal loss in my opinion, would be Sincere Edwards. And the reason why, I think it was a good idea for Pitt to just let him go now. They certainly had an agreement to pay him. I think he would have came back in the spring and renegotiated. There was some stuff going on before they went to Detroit for the bowl game, where he was kind of already having thoughts. I had people calling me from coaches and agents that were calling me saying, hey, they're reaching out to other universities about potentially going somewhere else. So I already had that. I already heard that thought. I think he was just really connected to Charlie Partridge. Obviously, he went back home to UCF. The reason why is just we were just so thin, and I think we're still thin. We have really 4 guys that can play the defensive end position, but if someone gets hurt, then you're down there again. I think he would have been a really good player. Even with some of the the shenanigans towards the end there. I think he'd been a damn good player, but just because we're so thin. Rylan Gandy, I think Rylan Gandy was a good corner, but he wasn't great. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to fight for $50,000 more, go ahead. Good luck with that opportunity. I mean, you're leaving a starting position here, but I think Sincere Edwards, because of what the defensive end position is right now, I think he's the biggest loss, in my opinion, because I think he would have been a really good player here. And just obviously to our overall numbers. Now, adding these 2 guys right now to the portal, it certainly helps out a lot. I would like Pitt to add at least 1 more. That'd be kind of nice, to really have 5 guys overall in a rotation and have one of the young guys really step up between Maverick Rossio, Ty Uhas, and who's the other one? Why am I drawing a blank on the other one? I just said his name too. It's going to bother me. If you guys in the comments, who else am I thinking back there? Maverick Rossio, Ty Uhas, and who's the other guy there? I'll give myself a couple more seconds here. Oh, yeah, Crothers. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Speedy Tortoise. Crothers. Zachary Crothers. You've got guys back there. And I think maybe, really one more guy. One more guy at the defensive end position is really all you need. Because then you have really, say the kid from Oregon gets in here more, you'd have more Spires, Jimmy Scott, Zelinsky, and then you have Nate Temple 5, and then Ty Uhas 6, Maverick Rossio 7, and Zach Crothers at 8. I mean, you got 8 defensive ends right there, along with Julian Anderson, the true freshman. I think Julian Anderson is a true freshman, may see some time. He could be the next true freshman that gets time. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So, I mean, just it depends on what the staff sees. Like, who is out of that group going to play? Who we think is actually going to be damn good? I mean, I thought Sincere Edwards played really well for his time here as a true freshman. He honestly could have been a lot better. I think he has to continue to work. But obviously, too, he's got family and whatnot. I believe he has a young child. So that's really important to go home. And obviously, going to UCF back in Orlando, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, too. So you can't blame him for that. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Kevin Collier held a Pitt. Appreciate it. Let's see if I missed any other ones. To all the Chicken Littles that thought the sky was falling when the low roster guys and underachievers, Elliot Donald, et cetera, enjoy that doozy crow you have to eat today. Held a Pitt. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'd like to see another backup QB. David Lynch Armstrong isn't there; he's immobile. Yeah, the backup quarterback at this point, Sherland, is going to be. God, I'm just drawing a blank tonight. Julian Duggar. Julian Duggar is going to be the backup quarterback, and that's what he is right now. I think it's pretty much solidified from what we've seen. David Lynch will still be he'll still be a what do you want to call it? A walk-on. He'll still be an option there if they really need somebody. But also, too, Mason, the true freshman, he's going to be coming in here. He'll probably be quarterback number 3. So you really have those guys there. Potentially in the world, I would like to add one more quarterback, in my opinion. When you have guys like, when you have a redshirt freshman and then a true freshman backing up your quarterback, that's kind of a little bit of a problem. I'd like to see, them add one more. But we'll continue to monitor that. I think that'd be really important for them to add one more quarterback, just to have a veteran's guy in there. To just, if something happens, where if Eli Holston gets hurt or Julian Duggar gets hurt, you want that extra guy in there, that veteran guy in that group, which I think would be really, really important. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Speedy Tortoise. You also said too, more of Oregon, but biggest gain so far, if I had to guess, I like the wide receivers a lot, Andy Jean and Deuce Spann, because Deuce Spann, from the coaches I've talked to, he was going to be a starter down there, and until he got hurt. And from what they told me, is his speed is incredible. And that's just what they told me. He's a 4.4 guy. I love it. And Andy Jean is just as good. I mean, Andy Jean's a damn good wide receiver. That's a good guy you picked up in the portal. I love those two, but I think just right now, I'm really stuck on the offensive lineman, because I think Kendall Stanley, who is really an All-American Conference offensive lineman at tackle, I think that his just overall, he's a guy that I think that can be really damn good. From anybody I've talked to and watching his tape, they said he could have gone Power 4 even last year. People were trying to make calls about it. He's a guy, in my opinion, is going to be really, really good. And I think personally, Kendall Stanley is going to be a starter immediately. I mean, that's how good I really think he is. Obviously, too, Keith Gavia, offensive lineman out of Richmond. When you get an offensive lineman that loves violence, that's all you can ask for. And I think that when you watch his tape, he just physically mauled people. That's another thing. So I think overall he was a good addition. Obviously Pitt's still looking at. Let's see here. Pitt's obviously still looking at C.J. James, offensive lineman at UTSA. He's visiting on the 9th of this month, so this Thursday. And William Reed at Princeton as well. I think William Reed has already visited, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check that. Let me see here. Your knowledge of Mason Heinschel, I forgot he was coming in. One, we kept him from going to Michigan. Michigan made a very strong push. I know people up there, they made a very strong push for him. To be honest with you, I think he's just a loyal kid. He's a great kid. I think anybody else would have probably gone to Michigan. I think he's done a hell of a job. I think he's got a tremendous arm, a live arm, a dual threat quarterback, which is really good in Cade's system. If you looked at Eli Holstein, dual threat, Julian Duggar, dual threat, and now Mason Heinschel. And I hope I'm saying his name right again. God, I feel bad. I keep messing up the kid's last name. Comes from a great family. Father's a great guy. He's a great person. And again, Charlene, we'll actually, to know more about him, that's one of our interviews that we'll be dropping. That's one of the interviews we'll be dropping on here going forward. And that'll be a really good interview overall. Let's see here. I don't see any more questions. I don't see any super chats as well. And we're coming up on the hour mark, guys, obviously. Don't see any super chats in here, so we should be good to go. Guys, obviously, a great weekend in terms of Pitt football, picking up guys they need to pick up. They certainly still need guys to pick up from here. These guys have a lot of potential moving forward, but they got to be able to be developed. That's number one. Shout out Alliance 412. Also donate only $19.76. Agree here. Again, Adam, it's a great point. The work, and I put out a tweet a while ago, and somebody or multiple people reached out to me and said, well, Eli Holstein and all these guys haven't said they're coming back yet, but go off, buddy. Well, I knew they were coming back, and they did announce it when they thought they weren't going to, because Eli's not even that way. But it's a good pick me up, especially after that loss Pitt had. But I knew they were coming back. And again, that's why I said Alliance 412. Alliance 412 has done a tremendous job keeping the players that need to stay here. They've really only lost two guys, and it's really Rylan Gandy and Sincere Edwards, and I call Sincere Edwards a bigger loss than Gandy. Overall, they've done a tremendous job for what they have. Obviously, our donors, if you are a subscriber of Alliance 412, thank you. Obviously myself, Adam, plenty of other people are members of Alliance 412, the collective, which has been huge. Ed Miller, Obviously, a former Pitt football player donated $1 million to the athletic directors fund, which is really used for whatever the athletic director sees as fit or it needs as a necessity. I think you can use your head a little bit and creative about where that money's probably going to go. And I think just overall, Alliance 412 has done a good job. John Pelusi, Jeff Goldberg, Chris Bickle, the CEO and founder of Alliance 412, General Manager Doug Whaley has done a really good job. That whole entire team over there has done a really good job. And I can't say enough just from top to bottom of how well that group has done. I mean, it's top shelf. And really appreciative of their hard work and what they continue to do and what this new year is going to bring and what the new changes and developments and a lot more stuff coming on board this year. It's going to be a lot more fun. It's going to be a lot more challenging. But revenue sharing should be good for the university and also too a salary cap. I think it's going to be really good overall for the game and more importantly Pitt and being very aggressive and obviously like Chris Bickle said to ESPN. We are going to be one of the national competitors when it comes to NIL. So I appreciate the hard work that he's done behind the scenes and what he does. And I know he's in a lot of meetings. He's in a lot of those conversations. So I appreciate that as always. When will we see a salary cap with NIL? Really needs to happen. The salary cap to pay players from the universities coming up, if it's passed in April, will be $22.5 million. And then NIL will be approved or disapproved by the NCAA and Congress and whatnot. It'll be a lot harder to get really real NIL money. Like NIL money is really for advertising, commercials, all that kind of stuff. That's what that will go to next, Sherlin. The salary cap for college football is going to be $22.5 million across all sports. That's going to be it. So I think it's going in the right direction. That salary cap will be here. If it's passed in April, that'll be here this year. Well, guys, don't see any let me see, making sure here I didn't miss any here. No super chats, no other comments. Guys, again, beyond thankful for everything you guys do for talking college football with JJ Kitchen. Appreciate everything you do for me. The show is what it is, and the Sunday conversation continues to grow. So, guys, I appreciate it as always. Now and forever, hail to Pitt. I'll see you guys next time.